The FBI's failure to interview Charles Dolan, page 163. As discussed above, Dolan first came to the attention of Crossfire Hurricane investigators during Steele's 2016 interview in Rome. Following that meeting, the Crossfire Hurricane personnel prepared a background report on Dolan. Steele again raised Dolan during a September 2017 interview with the FBI when he indicated that at least one allegation in his reporting was sourced to Dolan. Notwithstanding Steele's October 2016 statements about Dolan, the FBI did not question Danchenko during the January 2017 interviews about Dolan or any of the other U.S. citizens that Steele suggested might have information about Trump and Russia. The FBI learns of Dolan's relationship with Olga Galkina. In the January 2017 interviews, Danchenko informed the FBI that Galkina was a source for several of the allegations contained in the Steele reports. As testimony in the Danchenko trial detailed, following this revelation, in the spring of 2017, the FBI began to review its databases for information related to Galkina. From its review, the FBI learned, among other things, that Galkina maintained a relationship with Charles Dolan, and Galkina had met with Dolan, Danchenko, and others in Washington, D.C. on March 2016 to discuss a business relationship between Servers.com and K Global. As discussed more fully below, beginning in the fall of 2017, Mueller Analyst 1, whose assignment was to find corroborating information for the Steele reporting, drafted a lengthy memorandum outlining the FBI's holdings on Galkina as they related to the Steele reports. Dolan featured prominently in the memorandum because of his connections to, among others, Galkina, Danchenko, and Dmitry Peskov, and his work for Servers.com. Based on the information detailed above, in the late spring and early summer 2017, the FBI began to investigate what, if any, role Dolan played as a vis-a-vis the Steele reports. To that end, on June 12, 2017, Otten, who at the time was a member of the Mueller Special Counsel team, sent an email to Helson, another Mueller team member, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1, and others, stating in part, some thoughts. 1. I'm not sure Danchenko has ever mentioned his connections with Dolan. 2. I'm positive Danchenko never mentioned that he'd done limiting consulting for Servers.com, i.e. putting Dolan in touch. Page 164. Number 3. As Dolan is tied to Peskov and presidential administration press communications, who is to say that he versus Galkina is the true subsource for Peskov and PA-related reporting in Steele? Number 4. Can we run Dolan through unattributed open source to see if he's done any opposition political research, etc.? The path of information could have been Kremlin, Galkina, Danchenko, Steele, or Kremlin, Dolan, Galkina, Danchenko, Steele, or Kremlin, Dolan, Danchenko, Steele. End of that memo. 3 days later, on June 15, 2017, Helson became the first FBI employee to ask Danchenko about his relationship with Dolan, despite the fact that the Crossfire Hurricane team was aware of Dolan's potential connections to the Steele reports as far back as October 2016 and their direct interactions with Danchenko since January 2017. Helson requests to interview Charles Dolan. Given Danchenko's reluctance to speak about Dolan and information learned from the Mueller Special Counsel team, Helson concluded that an interview of Dolan was a logical investigative step. However, when Helson raised this prospect with the Mueller Special Counsel team, he was explicitly told not to interview Dolan. Helson expressed confidence that Otten was the individual who told Helson to hold off on interviewing Dolan. When interviewed by the office, Otten did not have a recollection of telling Helson not to interview Dolan. During a July 27, 2021 interview with the office, Helson stated that he aggressively pushed the Dolan information to the Mueller Special Counsel team, but received very little feedback. Helson believed that Mueller Special Counsel attorney Andrew Weissman and a female attorney he was unfamiliar with were present for at least one briefing Helson provided to the Mueller team in which he shared information regarding Dolan. Helson also stated, in sum, that Dolan should have been further investigated in connection with the Steele reports, or at a minimum interviewed, based on the information that was available to the FBI at the time. In December 2017, Helson shared his concerns about Dolan with Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1, both part of the Mueller Special Counsel team. Page 165. For example, on December 21, 2017, in an FBI link chat with Mueller Analyst 1, Helson wrote, "I really don't like that guy, Dolan, and that he, Helson, was fighting to get them, the Mueller team, interested in what I have here," referring to Dolan. In the same chat, Helson informed Mueller Analyst 1 that he would keep talking to him, Danchenko, about CD, just Charles Dolan. On January 9, 2018, Helson sent a link message to Mueller analyst stating what a little triangle the three of them have, meaning Danchenko, Galkina, and Dolan. Finally, on January 17, 2018, after reviewing Mueller Analyst 1's memorandum on Galkina, Helson wrote to Mueller Analyst 1, "It really makes Dolan look like he should be investigated. Indeed," as Helson would later state to the OIG. And this is what he stated. "There is an individual we kind of were watching pop up a lot, and that's Chuck Dolan, formerly with Ketchum Group. He's in the same circles." I'm like, are you sure that, because it would be classic potential tradecraft to be like, if you can get information corroborated by one, you can attribute it to one and mask exactly where you got it. And I don't think anyone's interviewed him, because at the time, I had suggested interviewing Dolan, Mueller special counsel, like, no, don't go talk to him yet. So I never, when they said stay away, I was like, okay, I don't want to, because I was concerned. I was like, is Dolan the source? Because I think there's actual, like, when I talked with Danchenko about him, he initially was reluctant to bring Dolan up. Then he seemed fond of him in a way. And it continues. So Dolan was in the same events, YPO conference. And we're like, does Dolan go to London? Does he talk to, does Chris Steele got to him too? I'm like, and that is a question I have flagged. It's like, when it gets quiet, and Dolan is, from what I understand, Dolan doesn't want to be talking at this point. So I want to strike that at some point and say, cross that off my list of here's what I would really like to talk about, or at least interview him, meaning Dolan. That would be the only one that I would think would be a source that could have contributed to the dossier and have attributed it to Galkina, and thinks it is too, because he's there too. And it would be, there's more sources to it, Steele reports, than actually there are. Chris Steele hasn't come off of any of them at this point. I don't want to, that's just a theory. Page 165. Nevertheless, as discussed below, a case was never opened on Dolan, and Dolan was never interviewed by the FBI. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 investigate the relationship between Dolan, Danchenko, and Galkina. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 was assigned to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation in April 2017. Shortly thereafter, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 transitioned to the Mueller Special Counsel team. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 was assigned, in part, the task of validating the Steele reports, meaning to verify the reporting, or alternatively, to determine that the reporting was not accurate. Beginning in July 2017, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 worked closely with, among others, Mueller Analyst 1. As discussed above, Mueller Analyst 1, who joined the Mueller investigation in July 2017, was responsible for reviewing the FBI's databases for information related to Galkina. During that process, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 discovered, as described in testimony in the Danchenko trial, that Dolan was connected to both Danchenko and Galkina, and had extensive ties to the Kremlin and Russian government officials, including Dmitry Peskov. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 also conducted open-source searches which corroborated certain information contained in the FBI databases. The FBI interviews Golga Galkina. In August 2017, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1, Otten, and a Russian-speaking agent, Washington Field Office Special Agent 1, traveled to Cyprus to interview Galkina. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 testified during the Danchenko trial that the purpose of the interview was to determine if Galkina provided Danchenko with information contained in the Steele reports, and if so, her motivation for doing so. During the Cyprus interview, which was conducted over the course of 2 days, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 stated that Galkina appeared to be forthcoming on most questions posed, except when she was asked about Dolan. Galkina informed Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 that she did not want to speak about Dolan. On the second day of the interview, Galkina stated in sum that she had spoken with 2 individuals about information that would later appear in Steele reports. One of the individuals Galkina passed information to was Danchenko, but Galkina initially refused to identify the other individual. Page 166. Later in the interview, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 again pressed Galkina about Dolan. This time, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 directly asked Galkina if Dolan had a connection to the information contained in the Steele reports, and whether Dolan was the second unidentified individual with whom she had discussed Steele report-related information. Before answering, Galkina asked Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 to remove her, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1's sunglasses from her face so that Galkina could look Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 in the eyes. Galkina then confirmed to Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 that Dolan was the second unidentified individual with whom she had discussed Steele report information. Galkina also stated that Dolan was a big Democratic supporter, in quotes. As discussed above, in October 2016, Galkina would later inform a friend that because of her, Galkina's, quote, acquaintance with Chuck Dolan and several citizens from the Russian presidential administration, Galkina knew something can tell a little about it by voice. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 pushed to open a case on Charles Dolan. Armed with the information provided by Galkina, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 returned to the United States and began to further investigate Galkina and Dolan's involvement, if any, with the Steele reports. As discussed above, beginning in July 2017, Mueller Analyst 1 assisted Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 in vetting the Steele reports. As part of that work, Mueller Analyst 1 began researching Galkina's relationship with various individuals possibly connected to the Steele reports, including Danchenko and Dolan. In connection with the research, Mueller Analyst 1 began drafting a memorandum to memorialize her findings. In or about late August 2017, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 briefed various members of the Mueller Special Counsel investigation about Dolan's relationship with Danchenko and Galkina. Those present for this briefing included Otten, Supervisory Special Agent 2, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 Supervisor, and Jeannie Ray, a prosecutor on the Mueller Special Counsel team, who, at the time, was leading the Special Counsel's investigation into Russian efforts to influence the 2016 presidential election, colloquially known as Team R, page 168. Following the meeting, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 believed that the team was supportive of continuing to investigate Charles Dolan and what connection, if any, he had to the Steele reports. On September 1, 2017, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 drafted a case opening document for Dolan. The opening document detailed, among other things, Dolan's connections to Danchenko and Galkina, Dolan's connections to the Democratic Party, and Dolan's connections to the Kremlin. The document also summarized Danchenko's June 15, 2017 conversation with Helson about Dolan. Nevertheless, on September 7, 2017, Otten instructed Mueller Analyst 1 to cease all research and analysis related to Dolan. Later that day, Supervisory Special Agent 2 informed Mueller Analyst 1 that she was being transferred from Team R to the Mueller team, investigating Paul Manafort, colloquially known as Team M. In her interview with the office, Mueller Analyst 1 recalled that she asked Supervisory Special Agent 2 for permission to continue researching Dolan before moving to Team M, but that her request was denied. Nevertheless, as discussed more below, following her transfer, Mueller Analyst 1 continued to refine her memorandum regarding Galkina's connections to, among others, Danchenko and Dolan. As noted above, in September 2017, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 participated in the two-day interview of Christopher Steele, in which Steele admitted that Dolan, quote, had drinks with Danchenko and was responsible for at least one allegation in the Steele reports regarding Manafort's resignation as Trump campaign manager. Footnote 1013. In her interview with Special Counsel, Mueller Analyst 1 stated that Otten had made edits to her memorandum, some of which removed information regarding Dolan. Mueller Analyst 1 recalled being frustrated by many of these edits and wondered if the edits were being made by individuals other than Otten and with a political motive. However, Mueller Analyst 1 was unable to provide any evidence to support this speculation. See OSC report of interview of Mueller Analyst 1 on August 16, 2021 at 5. When interviewed by the office, Otten recalled that his edits were reflective of his belief that some of the information regarding Dolan was too speculative. Page 169. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 stated that they did not probe Steele further about Charles Dolan because the FBI did not want to, quote, show their hand to Steele. On September 22, 2017, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 attended a meeting with Supervisory Special Agent 2, Otten and Attorney Ray, to discuss, among other things, the recently completed interview of Steele. At various times in September 2017, Mueller Analyst 1 recalled that Ray opined in sum that there was no longer a need to investigate the Steele reports because the reports were not within the scope of the Mueller Special Counsel mandate. Similarly, Otten told the office he recalled that in September 2017, Deputy Assistant Director David Archie informed the team that they should cease work on attempting to corroborate the Steele reports. This directive, given by Mueller investigation leadership, was somewhat surprising given that Director Mueller's broad mandate was to investigate, among other things, Russian election interference in the 2016 presidential election, parameters that clearly would seem to include the Steele reports. Indeed, as Mueller Analyst 1 noted in her interview with the office, the Mueller Special Counsel team continued to investigate cases involving non-Russian persons and entities. This Mueller Analyst 1 disagreed, and with the connection that Dolan fell outside of the Mueller mandate. In her interview with the office, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 stated that while she did not recall the outside the mandate justification for the denial of the Dolan case opening, it would surprise her if that was the reason provided by Mueller team leadership. This purported position also is curious, given that the Steele reports underpinned in a significant way the probable cause contained in the Page FISA applications. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 also recalled that Attorney Wray, while initially favorable to investigating Dolan, gradually soured to the idea. In that same vein, in a meeting October 17, 2017, Supervisory Special Agent 2 informed Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1, Mueller Analyst 1, and Otten that Dolan fell outside of the Mueller investigation's mandate. The investigators had too much work and too few resources to focus on Dolan, and Washington Field Office could task Danchenko regarding Dolan. In fact, Mueller Analyst 1's contemporaneous notes explicitly stated that Mueller investigation leadership directed Mueller Analyst 1 and Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 to dedicate no resources to CD, who was Dolan. Page 170. Nevertheless, Supervisory Special Agent 2 stated that tangential work on Dolan could be continued, although it was unlikely that a case opening on Dolan would be approved. Ultimately, Supervisory Special Agent 2 informed Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 that her request to open a case on Dolan had been denied and that it was a higher-level decision. Supervisory Special Agent 2 directed Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 to delete the case opening from Sentinel. Despite repeated inquiries, neither Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 nor Mueller Analyst 1 was ever provided a specific rationale for the denial of the case opening. Similarly, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 never learned who ultimately denied the case opening. In a December 21, 2017 linked message exchange, Mueller Analyst 1 and Helson discussed the case opening on Dolan. In one message, Mueller Analyst 1 stated, "Yeah, it isn't good that EM, FBI Executive Management, decides to do with it beyond my pay grade. I've made arguments in person, and that's all I can do, and serialize the relationship." During an interview with the office, Supervisory Special Agent 2 opined in retrospect that it was an oversight not to open on Dolan and that Dolan should have been, at a minimum, interviewed. It should also be noted that in his interviews with the office, Otten stated that he was supportive of opening an investigation of Dolan. This recollection was corroborated by both Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 and Mueller Analyst 1 expressed concerns about the appearance of political bias in the decision not to open on Charles Dolan. In her interview with the office, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 recalled that she and Mueller Analyst 1 discussed whether the decision not to open on Dolan was politically motivated, given Dolan's extensive connections to the Democratic Party. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 stated that she did not believe the decision not to open on Dolan was political, but that she did worry about the optics of the decision, given that Dolan was a prominent Democrat. Page 171. Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 further stated that she did not witness any explicit political bias during her work with the Mueller Special Counsel team. Nonetheless, at the time, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1 believed that the decision not to open on Dolan would eventually be reviewed by the OIG. When interviewed by the office, Mueller Analyst 1 did speculate that the decision not to open on Dolan was politically motivated. Mueller Analyst 1 speculated that the information on Dolan ran counter to the narrative that the Mueller Special Counsel investigators were cultivating, given that Dolan was a former Democratic political operative. However, Mueller Analyst 1 was unable to provide the office with definitive evidence to support her belief. Like Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1, Mueller Analyst 1 believed that the decision not to investigate Dolan would eventually be reviewed by the OIG. In fact, Mueller Analyst 1 informed the office that she uploaded her Galkina memorandum to 3 separate case files on the FBI Sentinel system to ensure that the OIG would have access to the document. The FBI's failure to investigate Dolan. In sum, save for efforts by Otten, Helson, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1, and Mueller Analyst 1, the FBI's failure to complete logical investigative steps concerning what, if any, role Dolan played in the Steele reports was troubling. As discussed above, the office has determined that Dolan was a source for at least one allegation in the Steele reports and was one of only 3 U.S. persons named by Steele in both his October 2016 and September 2017 interviews, who had more information about the reports. If the FBI had learned nothing more about Dolan, Steele's statements alone would have been an ample basis to interview Dolan. Moreover, Mueller Supervisory Special Agent 1, Mueller Analyst 1, and others had uncovered significant information about Dolan, independent from what the office subsequently unearthed, that potentially connected him to the Steele reports. This was information that plainly warranted further investigation. In summary, the evidence possessed by the FBI and later elicited during the Danchenko trial show that Dolan maintained a relationship with Danchenko, Steele's primary subsource for the Steele reports. Dolan maintained relationships with various Russian government officials, including Dmitry Peskov and Alexei Pavlov, both of whom feature prominently in the Steele reports. Page 72. Dolan was present in Moscow in June 2016, met with the general manager of the Moscow Ritz-Carlton, toured the premises, including the presidential suite, and had at least one meeting with Danchenko, who also was in Moscow. Dolan was present in Moscow with Danchenko in October 2016 during the time frame Danchenko was gathering information for the Steele reports. Dolan maintained a relationship with Galkina, allegedly a subsource for Danchenko, and met with Galkina in Cyprus on 2 occasions in the summer of 2016. Dolan performed work for Galkina's former employer, who would later appear in the Steele reports. Galkina admitted to the FBI that she provided Dolan with information that would eventually be in the Steele reports, and Dolan was a prominent and longtime Democratic political operative who vocally supported candidate Clinton. The FBI interviewed hundreds of individuals through the course of the Crossfire Hurricane and Mueller Special Counsel investigations, and yet they did not interview Dolan or the other 2 U.S. persons identified by Steele as early as October 2016. The office interviewed Dolan on several occasions, and he denied being a source of information for the Steele reports, save for the Manafort campaign-related allegation he provided to Danchenko on August 2016, an allegation he acknowledged to the office that he fabricated. Although both Steele and Galkina suggested that Dolan may have information related to the Steele reports, our investigation was not able to definitively prove that Dolan was the actual source for any additional allegations set forth in the Steele reports. That said, in light of the foregoing, there does not appear to be an objectively sound reason for the decision that was made not to interview him. Sergei Milyan. A particularly disturbing example of the unsupported narratives regarding Trump and Russia, created and pressed by Fusion GPS and Steele, involved a Belarusian American named Sergei Milyan. At the time of his purported involvement in the Trump-related matters, Milyan was a New York-based real estate broker who from 2006 to 2016 served as president of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce. In the course of his employment, Milyan had occasion to be involved in some relatively minor listings of Trump Organization properties. As discussed more fully below, Danchenko claimed to have sourced several of the most serious allegations in the Steele reports to Milyan, including allegations of an ongoing conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian officials. Several of these allegations were included in the page FISA applications. In particular, and perhaps most importantly, Steele Report 2016-095 stated in part, "Speaking in confidence to compatriot, in late July 2016, Source E, an ethnic Russian, close associate of Republican U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump, admitted that there was a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between them and the Russian leadership. This was managed on the Trump side by the Republican candidate's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who was using foreign policy advisor Carter Page and others intermediaries. The 2 sides had a mutual interest in defeating Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, whom President Putin apparently both hated and feared." Page 173. During several interviews with the FBI, Danchenko said that he believed Source E in Report 2016-095 referred, at least in part, to Milyan. According to Steele, Danchenko was the only one communicating with Milyan, and Steele stated that Danchenko had had direct contacts with Milyan in New York City and Charleston, South Carolina. On the other hand, Danchenko told the FBI that although Steele believed that he, Danchenko, had met with Milyan, he never did. Further, Danchenko did not correct Steele in his mistaken belief that Danchenko had met directly with Milyan. As explained in greater detail below, the spectacular claim contained in Steele Report number 2016-095 of a, quote, well-developed conspiracy of cooperation, end quote, between the Trump campaign and Russian leadership is based entirely on a purported anonymous telephone call Danchenko said he received from someone he had never spoken to before. In particular, the information about the conspiracy was conveyed to him by an anonymous caller who Danchenko told Crossfire Hurricane investigators he believed might have been Milyan based on Danchenko's claimed comparison of the caller's voice to a known YouTube video featuring Milyan. Yet this unvetted completely uncorroborated allegation was included in the page 5's applications, both before and after the FBI learned its provenance from Danchenko himself. Danchenko's statements to the FBI regarding Millian. When interviewed by the FBI in January 2017, Danchenko was twice asked to review Steele Report number 2016-095 and explain where the information came from concerning a well-developed conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian leadership and the roles allegedly being played by Manafort and Page. Danchenko told the FBI that the sourcey information sounded as though it were a call he had received in late July 2016 from an anonymous caller who Danchenko believed was Sergei Millian. In particular, Danchenko described the following strange event. Strange in quotes. Danchenko told the FBI that in June or July 2016, he communicated with Alexei Bogdanovsky, a U.S.-based Russian national employee of RIA Novosady, a Russian state-run media outlet, about reaching out to Millian, who Danchenko had never met or spoken with. Page 174. Bogdanovsky indicated that his colleague at RIA Novosady, Dmitry Zlodarev, had a relationship with Millian and had previously interviewed Millian about Trump. Bogdanovsky ultimately provided Danchenko with Millian's contact information. Thereafter, Danchenko told the FBI that he reached out to Millian via email twice, but did not receive a response back from him. Danchenko did not provide the FBI with copies of these emails, despite explicit requests to provide any records of communication with Millian. Danchenko next told the FBI that in late July 2016, after receiving no email response from Millian, he, Danchenko, received a 10 to 15-minute phone call from an anonymous individual who he believed to be Sergei Millian. During this purported phone call, the caller, who did not identify himself, reportedly informed Danchenko about Trump and the Kremlin, communications, and an ongoing relationship between the parties, and Manafort and Page. The identified caller also supposedly said that while there was nothing bad about the exchange of information between Trump and the Kremlin, the information could be good for Russia and damaging to Trump, although deniable. Danchenko said that he and the person he believed to be Millian agreed to meet at a bar in New York City in late July 2016. Danchenko also told the FBI that he traveled to New York in late July 2016, but that Millian, or the person he believed to be Millian, never showed up for the meeting. As discussed in detail below, Danchenko's versions of the events regarding his trip to New York conflict with the relevant record. Nevertheless, Danchenko did admit to the FBI that he had, in fact, never met with Millian in person, although as noted above, Danchenko knew that Steele mistakenly thought that they had met on several occasions, and Danchenko intentionally did not correct him on that point. Page 175. Instead, Danchenko told the FBI that the damaging allegations contained in Steele Report 2016-095 stemmed from the single telephone call from the anonymous individual he believed to be Millian. The office did not find any evidence or uncover any motive that would explain why Millian, a vocal Trump supporter, would call a complete stranger and provide damaging information about Trump. In any event, Danchenko was not able to provide phone records or other evidence to corroborate this alleged call, despite explicit requests by the FBI to do so. Nor does it appear from FBI records that Crossfire Hurricane personnel pulled and received Danchenko's toll records in an attempt to corroborate his statements regarding an anonymous call. Danchenko surmised during one interview that the purported call may have been received on an encrypted phone app, although a review of his email messages to Millian reflect that he made no mention of having or using any phone apps. Consistently with his inability to keep a narrative straight, Danchenko also later told the FBI that he had a couple of calls with Millian. Danchenko also told the FBI that Source D in Steele Report 2016-080 related in part to the scandalous Moscow Ritz-Carlton allegations against Trump could be referring to Millian. Danchenko's efforts to partially attribute the Ritz-Carlton allegations to Millian support the notion that he fabricated his interaction with Millian. Indeed, as noted above, Danchenko told the FBI that the information he obtained from Millian came from a single 10 to 15-minute anonymous phone call that took place in late July 2016 and was the only time that Danchenko allegedly communicated with Millian. Given that the Steele Report contained those sexual allegations was dated June 2016, over a month prior to Danchenko's alleged call with Millian, the above described Source D, Millian, allegation concerning the Ritz-Carlton is highly probative of the fact that there was never such a phone call between Danchenko and Millian. It would have been impossible for Millian to confirm the Ritz-Carlton allegations and other information to Danchenko in June 2016 because Danchenko repeatedly informed the FBI the first time he allegedly communicated with Millian was late July 2016.